a daunting muffler. Okay. Hey, what's up? It's Chris. We're gonna talk about my top 7 books. I was gonna be top 5 and then I couldn't agree on 5, so it ended up being 7 books. That's what we're gonna start with. This is my first time doing a YouTube video. I am pretty prevalent on TikTok, and then I was like, you know what? Longer format content doesn't do the best on TikTok, so we're gonna move over to YouTube for some of my longer format content. And also, I really like yapping about books, and I love listening to people yap about books. And I know it's a crazy saturated market, but like, maybe I'm somebody's cup of tea, you know? And I read kind of a little bit of everything. Now that I've gathered my list of things, I realize there's so much I've read. In the last 3 years is when I've really started coming into reading. So let's get into my top books. This one I'll probably have to edit and put on screen. Hello. The first one we're going to talk about is going to be Basil and Oregano by Melissa. Oh man, let me grab my reading journal. Melissa Capri-Gillon. I should have looked that up before. This is her name. She is a really good graphic novelist that I rated 5 stars. I actually read it recently, very recently, and it ended up in my top 7 books. I don't have a physical copy of it. I got it from the library on a whim, and it's about, like, kitchen magic. It's these girls in, I'm assuming it's college for, like, culinary magic, and there's, like, a lot of good tension, and it's broken up, really fun, and Tomato is my favorite character. I'm gonna be so real. Love Tomato. So I highly recommend it if you are a big graphic novel reader, or even if you're not. It's really fun for somebody who's really into cooking and stuff. Let's get on to our second one. This is another graphic novel. It's called Garlic and Vampire by Bree Paulson. This is another food-themed graphic novel. Maybe I do have a theme here. I loved this. I bought it. My husband's read it. I've read it. I've read it a couple of times, actually. It's just so fun, and here's a little sneak peek. The character designs, all the little fruit and veggie adventurers, and it was such a good read. And it's just beautiful. And it's funny, and I recommend it. Obviously, that's this whole point of this video. So, graphic novels, those are my 2 graphic novels I picked. I loved them. Okay, let's get into it. I'm a big suspense horror reader. I've come to really find that I love T. Kingfisher's writing, also known as Ursula Vernon. T. Kingfisher, I believe, is her pen name. I ended up with What Moves the Dead about last year. This book right here. I had so much fun with it. I thought I knew what was going on. I thought I was going to be able to predict the twist. I was like, yeah, okay. It starts a little slow. I had so much fun, and by the time the twist happened, I was like, what happened here? This book really got me into suspense and horror reading. I have since read her 2 other novels that go with this, which is What Feasts at Night and What Stalks the Deep, are the other 2 books currently in the Sworn Soldier. I don't know if it's a trilogy or a series yet. There's 3 books currently. I waited a long time. Not a super long time. I waited a good amount of time. The second she announced that she was doing What Stalks the Deep, I was like stalking the page for when the release was coming out. I was really invested in these characters. The fact that she has created an entirely different like country, and it's so believable in the realm of like society and everything. It was just really good. I really recommend it if you're not too like weirded out by like things kind of crawling out of your skin. Phenomenal read. You can read the books out of order. There's like little snippets of stuff from past books, but you don't necessarily have to read them in order because there's not like a bunch of spoilers. It's more missing context. Highly recommend it. It's phenomenal. Next up, this one's a weird one. I kind of just like pick stuff up at Goodwill sometimes, as do we all. And I picked up this book at Goodwill about 2 years ago. I think I read it last year, maybe 2 years ago. Can't remember. This book has not left my mind since I've read it. I read this book thinking it was going to be a comedy book, and I ended up bawling my eyes out. I am a bartender and have been for the last 6 years. And so I work in the service industry, and I've never experienced this, thank God, but I know people who have experienced this, and it just really messed me up. So this is called Last Night at Lobster by Stuart Onan. I did not look at the name before showing this. This is not a comedy book. This is actually about a bunch of coworkers' last day before a Red Lobster is shut down, which sounds kind of silly, I know. And it's just about the people who showed up on shift, what's happened, it's snowing, and it's depressing, and it's just, I don't know why. This book made me cry. I got really emotional. I was really invested in the storyline. I don't have a lot of ways to explain this, but I think about this book so often. It does not leave my mental state ever. This book comes to mind when someone goes, "Oh man, what's a really good book you've read?" This is one of the books I always think about. And it's so weird because I thought it was a comedy book and I pulled it off the Goodwill shelf. Just like, oh, this will be funny, haha. I cried. I cried so hard. If you are a service worker, or if you are a person who has just found out that their job is shutting down, I recommend this book. It is beautiful, really. It is well written. So yeah, this is Last Night at Lobsters. It's threw me through the ringer, I'm not gonna lie. It does have its quirky moments, it's got its fun moments, but overall, like, by the end of it, it's not a good ending, because at the end of the day, it isn't a good ending. Especially when your company is shutting down and you're losing your job, and yeah. I'm serious, that book lives rent-free in my head. And it can stay there. I was blown away with it. Okay. We'll move on. I love that book so much. This one I read in December. I got it for Christmas. A friend of mine picked it up for me. I knew nothing about it. She just knows that I'm into, like, horror-esque novels. And so I ended up with Midnight Timetable. It's a novel and ghost stories by Bora Chung. This has been translated from, I believe it was Korean? Oh, don't quote me on that yet. Oh no! I can't remember. It was translated from another language into English. This book I finished in like 2 days. I'm not a very fast reader. I'm gonna be so honest when I say that. I am not a fast reader. And this book, I was like, cool, I'll start it in December, see what it's about, and then I'll finish it probably in January, and it'll probably be the first book I finish for my reading year for 2026. I finished it the day before January 1st, and I went, God damn. This is a series of different ghost stories, in a sense. They are haunted objects, and by the end, they all kind of connect into one thing. They're all kind of described from different perspectives. Some of the translation is a little strange, but it was so good. I finished it so quick. I rated it 5 stars. I would go and find her other work. It was great. I intend to go look and find some of her other work. Actually, I would love to figure out and see what other things she has written, because this was great. It was really, really good read. Each story is a little different, so if you're looking for something where it's not the same story, it feels like a bunch of little short stories, because that kind of is, but then they all kind of connect in the end. It was great. It was phenomenal. Highly recommend it. The next book, you can peel from my cold, dead hands, okay? This has been my favorite book since I was a kid, and I quit reading for a long time until about 3 years ago, and this book is still my favorite book because I've reread it in my adult life. It's my all-time favorite book, and that's correct. It is Series of Unfortunate Events, specifically Book 2, okay? It's the reptile room. I had lizards when I was a little kid. Not a little kid. I got my first leopard gecko, I believe I was 13 or 14. I want to say 14. This is my favorite book. I have an older copy of this book in paperback. My mother bought it for me. I took it everywhere. I always read it, reread it. I accidentally left it in like a little wood house my dad had built with me in my backyard, and we got into a mud fight with some friends, and I had left it in there. So the front cover of the original book is so messed up. It's covered in mud. It's sitting in my like chest of keepsakes because I will never get rid of that book. But I don't put it on my shelf anymore because it is so old and it is pretty damaged. So I actually went and thrifted every single hardcover of the entire series outside of probably book 11 and 12, which my mom bought for me because I couldn't find them at the library because I'd read most of these books at the library. I was a big library kid. So yeah, this is my all-time favorite book. You can peel it from my cold hands. Monty deserved better. They all deserved better, but man, I loved Monty. I loved the description of the reptile room. It just really, I think the reptile room is what really solidified me reading this entire series when I was a kid. It was just so good. So yes, that is in my top 7 books, and it will probably stay there forever. And last but not least, this is the book 1 to a trilogy I read because, again, I thought it was a funny cover. It was in the romance section. I bought it from Barnes & Noble, and I went, what's the worst that could happen, right? Little did I know, and for the readers that are not 18 plus, this does have some spice in it. This is a spicy novel. This is I'm in Love with Mothman by Paige Lavoie. Lavoie. Hopefully I said that right. Apologies if I didn't. I bought this book sheerly because of the title. I'm not kidding you. I really didn't read the back of it. I just went, you know what? That sounds pretty funny. I would just happen to be in the romance section. I don't read a ton of romance books. I bought this. I thought it was really funny. The setup was great. It's quite literally from the perspective of a influencer, like online influencer who's just fed up. She's like, fuck this, and moves to a cottage in the woods. And Mothman crashes into her roof during a storm, and so it goes. This book had me rolling. The end of the book actually had me stressed out. I was like, oh my god, there's no way this is happening. I genuinely thought the author was just gonna... I thought it was over. Book 1, I thought it was gonna be over. Then book 2 came out, and then I had to wait for book 3. And you're dang right, I own all 3 of those bad boys, and I've read all 3 of them, and they were all great. Book 3 is especially pretty fun because it goes from both perspectives, from Heather, the main character, and Mothman's perspective. So if you're into romance books, if you're into spicy novels, this is cryptid romance with some hot spice, and it's pretty good. I gotta admit, as someone who's not a big romance reader, this was freaking phenomenal. And if you make it past this one and you liked it, I know that you'll read book 2 and book 3. They were all amazing. So those are my top 7 books. I just, I really didn't get into reading until, like I said, about 3 years ago. So the first book that actually got me back into reading was something that I had sitting on my shelf from when I was a teenager. And I was going to Barnes & Noble with my grandpa, and I'd picked up the Gone series by Michael Grant. And at the time, there was only 2 or 3 books, and I had bought book 1. And book 1 is like, almost 400 pages. I have the whole series on my shelf. I read book 1, ended up going back with my grandpa to get book 2 and 3. I made it halfway through book 2. The bookmark was still in book 2 a decade later. Okay, I'm 26. A decade later, book 2 still had the bookmark in it. And 3 years ago, I went, man, I don't remember anything about these books. And at the time, I thought it was just a trilogy, and it was just books I had on my shelf. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go reread these. And I reread them. I read through Gone, I read through Hunger, I read through Lies. And I went, that's crazy. Lies really left up on a cliffhanger. Come to find out, there was 9 books in that series. And I went on Thrift Books, and I was like, not sponsored, by the way, and I found all of them. And I bought them. And then I read all the way up to book 6, where they have a good closure ending. And then I found out that he did another, kind of side trilogy after. Little did I know they are not canon to the book. I thought all the way up to book 9 they were canon to the series, and I was so mad at Michael Grant, because I was like, why would you ruin this series like this? This is ridiculous. And then at the end of book 9 it says, oh yeah, this was just a fun project I did. I just kind of wanted to continue with some of the characters, and this is not canon to the original 6 books. And I was like, why didn't you put that in book 7, like a forward? Why'd you put it at the end of book 9? Because by the end of book 9 I was so mad. But that's the series that got me back into reading. Would I recommend that series for anyone trying to get back into reading? Absolutely not. Those books are this big. And big books can sometimes be daunting. And two, I genuinely think the only reason I liked Gone was because it got me back into reading and I found it interesting at the time. Could I go back and read it now? I don't know. I think it might be a nostalgia thing. And I say nostalgia like it wasn't 3 years ago when I read them. But I've recently read the Berserk trilogy that was written roughly around the end of book 5 in 2012 was when he published that trilogy, the first book of that trilogy. I hated those books. I hated the way he wrote the characters, and I read through all 3 of those books because they were on my shelf. It was terrible, and I can do a whole rant review about that if you guys are interested. I don't dislike a lot of books. There are like 2 books that really stand out to me, and it's the Berserk trilogy by Michael Grant and Spellfall. Not Spellfall, Spell Shop. Spellfall's another book I've read when I was a kid. Spell Shop, I can't remember the name of the author for that one. I actually gave that book away. I was so mad. I made sure to read through the entire book because the book was $30. And I had, I think, too high expectations going into it for me to absolutely hate that book. I wrote like a 2-page Word document about how much I hated that book. So we can get into that at some point if we really want to. But for now, that was what it is. If you got to do this video, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching my first ever YouTube video. And I do hope to get through some of these. I like to do library hauls. I go to the library a lot. I'm in a book buying ban for this year, and we can talk about that another time. So thank you so much for getting to the end of this video. That's all I got. I don't really know how to end these yet, so thank you.